how many guys on the Celtics right now are actually capable of maximizing the play of their two-star wings, right? I think Rob makes a lot of sense for this team, right? Al's had a tough time, and Al at the beginning part of the season was incredible, and it's tapered off a little bit. I think maybe we all sort of saw that coming, but we wanted to believe in Al Horford because I think we all kind of just really like watching Al Horford play, and he's just a nice guy, and we have a long history with him. But like, how many players currently on their roster right now are actually going to enhance Jaylen and Jayson? Like, I think Rob is one of them with the way he can pass his big and way his gravity as he comes off a pick and rolls to the basket as a lob threat. I think that's great. It gives them a little bit of different looks all over the place. Defensively, he covers up for a lot. But I love Smart. Like, don't get me wrong, but is Smart the best guy for this team? I think there's only a few players currently on the team that actually help this team. I like Grant. I'd like to hang on him if it's possible. I think he plays defensively very well. I think his newfound shot's nice. But the only other guy that I'm like, this guy makes sense with this team is currently not available to play because he's in health and safety protocol. And that's Payton Pritchard. The fact that he can run an offense, but when you want the ball in Jason's hands or in Jaylen's hands, because I think Jayson really this year has done a great job trying to become more of a facilitator. I think a lot of people get on him for stuff. And I think it's a little ridiculous considering the team he has around him. He doesn't average 7 assists a game. Well, dude, look who he's passing the ball to. Okay. He's passing the ball to Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart, Grant Williams, Al. This is not the Warriors here. This is not a 3-point shooting team. It's a really pathetic one right now. I think Pritchard's the only guy. Again, we talk about gravity with Rob, has gravity where he sits around the 3-point line. He has great range and is a great shooter when he has good rhythm, and they haven't got him any good rhythm because he hasn't got any run this year. So my question to you, Chris, is how many guys on the roster right now actually fit what the Jays need to succeed? Because I don't think it's a big number.
I think it's a pretty small number, and I think the evidence is very clear from this year and last year. I think it's pretty obvious that not a whole lot. I agree with you with Rob. I think Rob is a really great young player who, if he can stay healthy, is really great for this roster. And I think they desperately need to try to hang on to. He's going to quickly turn into one of their best trade pieces, their best trade assets. So who knows what'll happen, but I definitely agree there. When you talk about Pritchard, that skill set is what maximizes Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. It's been proven. If you have versatile shooters around them, it does a variety of things for their game to raise their ceiling. You need guys who can. The spacing is so key. I keep coming back to that. These rosters have zero spacing, and guys like Pritchard, who ideally a little bit bigger than Pritchard, are those versatile shooters. That's the kind of guy you need around Jaylen Brown and around Jayson Tatum to maximize their skill sets, to give them the spacing they need to really raise that ceiling. Pritchard is a great guy to have off the bench. He's not going to get into the teeth of a defense like a guy like Dennis Schroeder is, but you see what happens when you have a guy that gets into the teeth of a defense on his own. That doesn't help Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. That's not really what you're looking for. You know what I mean? So I totally agree. Marcus Smart, he has been really good over the last month, and he is a good point guard. I don't think he's being put in advantageous positions for him to maximize himself at all either. You quickly turn him into a shooting guard in some of these lineups, and he's going to play like a shooting guard. That's just the way it is. He's not a great shooting guard. He is a pretty good point guard. I like him as this team's point guard. So I think if you can find a way to keep him as that point guard, then there's something to be said about him having some gravity here with this roster. But it's a small number. I definitely agree it's a small number, and I stick with the fact that I think everyone outside of Jaylen and Jayson needs to be available come this offseason.
It's just ridiculous. And at some point, do we have a conversation about the front office and the people are in the front office? Because everybody's making a big deal about the Desmond Bane thing, and we all knew at the time this was going to be just everybody saw it coming. Desmond Bane's going to be good because Boston drafted him only to trade him to Memphis to get off a contract, right? We all saw this coming, and everybody in there, everybody loved Desmond Bane pre-draft. The internet is rarely right about something, but it seems like the internet was right on Desmond Bane, and good for the Grizzlies are awesome. They're fun to watch. Happy for them. Don't get me wrong. But that one hurts. Letting him go. Here's another one that's even more recent than that. Garrison Matthews was on the team. He was there. He was right there.
You're preaching to the choir about Garrison Matthews.
Like, as someone who's a Wizards fan who's watched it, like he was on the team and he had a bad preseason, right? Because he didn't have a lot of rhythm and they had other younger guys that wanted. But like Garrison Matthews is exactly the guy that you want. Like he's exactly the guy. Like a stand in the corner three. Like I can't swear on this podcast. I don't care. Like if his defensive chops like aren't great, as we already talked about with eBay. Like we know the best defensive lineup is not the best shooting lineup. But like at this point, you're so desperate for shooting. Like who cares about defense? Like Garrison Matthews, that one hurts a lot. Like I want Sam Hauser to play because it's like at some point, like I know that guy can shoot threes. Like whether he's not going to be a defensive, genius, he's not going to be a guy that's a lockdown defender. I know that, but like he might help with floor spacing and help your offense not look terrible. Okay. At some point, do we have to ask like are the right people? What happened with they were looking into Landry Fields to come in from Atlanta. Now, I don't know what, like that was a story and then it went away. Like it just died. So do they have to look somewhere else to bring other eyes in so they can figure out exactly the talent you need to get to surround the Jays? Because like, again, it's either, and again, trading Marcus Smart is something you don't want to do, but of all the guys that you want that are not named Jaylen Brown, like he might have the most value because what he brings to a team. And like, as much as it will absolutely kill me to trade him because I love him, it might at some point like that is going to probably be the possibility to get actual talent in the door.
I like that angle. We should jump on the angle of the second the Celtics screwed up by not bringing Landry Fields in. That's when everything went south. I'm
down, but like everybody talks about how good of a young like front office guy he is. Of course, I love he had a couple of good runs with the Knicks. I'm not gonna lie. He had some good runs with the Knicks. Good 3-point shooter, right? And has one of the best, if not the best, Modell's commercial of all time. But like they have the same like brain trust kind of, and it seems to me that like they're just not pulling the right triggers. And that could be a cap thing, but like the talent, like again, Garrison Matthews was in your building, in the building, and they let him.
You are preaching to the choir about Garrison Matthews. Like I wrote about it, I podcast about it. He made so much more sense than Jabari Parker for that final roster spot. Instead, they only offered him a 2-way deal, and he said, no thanks, and now he's contributing in Houston. The one thing I do come back to with Garrison Matthews is that if they had kept him around, I don't think he'd be getting any minutes because you see these short benches that Ime is running during some of these stretches that I don't agree with, because if you're in desperate need of shooting, throw Sam Hauser out there for a few minutes, throw a hypothetical Garrison Matthews out there for a little bit. Like it would make sense, but I think I would be ripping my hair out if Garrison Matthews is on this team because I don't think he would be touching the floor as frustrating as it is. I just think that's the way it is, but I totally agree with you. Like, I think that was an awful decision. And I think it makes no sense. I think there's an element of the Brad school of thought in this front office where like, let's stick with the bets.